Happy start of the week. Today I bring to you a beautiful ancient story called The King and His Successor, and it's an old story with an incredible life lesson. I hope you enjoy it. In ancient times, there once lived a king who was famous for his wisdom and righteousness. People in his kingdom were very happy because the great king ruled justly and looked after the needs of his subjects. The king had lived a wonderful life, but he had one regret: he had no children. The question about who would be the next king was very worrisome to him. His ministers were becoming anxious too, because the king was advancing in old age with no prince or princess to follow him. And his subjects were also unsure about their future. As the thought of retiring came to the king's mind, he spread the word across the kingdom that he soon was going to appoint a new successor to the kingdom. The news of the search for the new successor caused a great stirring across the land. The king was considered to be the wisest to have come for a long time. His clever policies had helped to build a just and content nation over the course of his ruling. Very few were surprised to know that he was going to overrule the traditional route of the family for the search of the one worthy of the throne. The king called the youth of the nation together and gathered them in the royal hall. The king gave each of them a seed and said, "This is a very special seed. I want you all to plant it, take care of it, and come back after a year to show me what you have done with it. Based on what you bring back, I will decide who the next king of the country will be." Everyone left the gathering with a seed. They excitedly planted their seed and waited for it to grow. As the months passed, the youth of the country were talking about how their plant had grown tremendously beautiful. Among all the youth, there was a young man whose seed hadn't grown. It hadn't even sprouted. Although he used to water the seed every day and did everything to make it grow, the seed would not grow. He could hear people talking about their plans, but still he had nothing. A year passed from the day that the seed was distributed. All the youth were summoned to the palace so that they could display the outcome of their seed. Each pod bore the name of the grower in big bold letters on a tag that was attached to the plant. The young man whose seed did not grow as the others was very reluctant to even attend the gathering, but his mother insisted to him to go to the palace because he had taken care of the plant and his efforts had been true, and there was no shame in that. The young man went to the palace with his empty pot. In the gathering, he was amazed to see the variety of beautiful plants others had grown. The young man put his empty pot on the floor and felt embarrassed to be there. People stared at him. Some people pointed and laughed out loud. When the king arrived in the hall, there were loud cheers. "Long live the king! Long live the king!" The king walked around the garden among the plants to smell the delightful scents of flowers and to enjoy the beautiful colors. There was a pin-drop silence. People felt their heartbeats quicken. The king inspected each and every pot. The king was holding the empty flower pot and looked for who it belonged to. The young man was hiding in the back, trying to go unseen. The king found him and ordered his guards to bring the young man to the front of the room. The young man was so embarrassed and sad that the king had noticed his utter failure to grow the seed. Arriving at the front, the guards let him go, leaving him standing alone where all others were staring and pointing. The young boy said with tears in his eyes, "I'm sorry, Your Highness. I tried everything I could think of, but I couldn't get the seed to grow." The king called the young man closer. He held the hand of the boy and raised it up and said, "Behold, everyone, here is your new king." The king said, "A year ago, I gave everyone a seed. I instructed you to take the seed, plant it, water it, and bring it back. But what you were unaware of was that every seed I handed out had been roasted beforehand, so none of them were fit to grow. All of you, after a year, have brought me trees, plants, and flowers born of your dishonesty. The seeds which grew these plants were not the ones I provided you. Therefore, look upon the only honest one among you, this young man, and know now why he deserves to be your ruler." It is said that the subjects of the kingdom, the ministers and judges, were pleased that the king had indeed chosen wisely. The next king had proven himself an honest man and ruled successfully for many years to come. I love the story because it brings to us a fundamental life lesson: honesty. No one can be a great person. No one can grow to be a great leader without honesty. It is the foundation of wisdom. And this story beautifully shows how the king used wisdom to choose the next successor. So honesty with oneself is existentialist, because if you can't be honest with yourself, you can be honest with others. The other young men not only tried to fool the king with a lie, but they were willing to live with the lie themselves and take something that clearly they didn't deserve. So yes, sometimes honesty may have you lose in the short term, but in the long run, you win, because eventually the truth comes out. And given that today is Monday, the first day of the week, let that be your theme. Every day this week, try to be like the young boy who, in spite of the embarrassment and the risk of being mocked and ridiculed, his principle of honesty was greater than the embarrassment of his perceived failure. And I like to believe that, just like in the story, when you don't compromise your values, when you do the right thing, that life eventually compensates you in a greater way than those who don't. And if you have not yet subscribed to my storytelling channel, please do so that you never miss an episode and a chance to be inspired. Stay grateful, stay safe, and as the saying goes, a lie always has two lies in it: the lie you tell others and the lie you tell yourself to justify it. I will see you next week in another beautiful episode of Transforming Your Life through Storytelling.